with us. Well, Thanksgiving's over, and we're getting ready to start our sort of second season of canning. We stay pretty busy during gardening and harvest time, and then we take a break for Thanksgiving. And because Thanksgiving was just day before yesterday when I'm filming, let me take a minute to say all the things that I was thankful for: my family, my home, my husband. And then let me mention too that I'm really thankful for the Facebook family that I have, and now the YouTube family that we're building. And I want to thank you for watching our videos. Please share, please like, please watch to the end. You know all of this. And we appreciate you so much. It seems that there was a need. There were people that wanted some plain cooking tutorials and some safe canning tutorials, and as the season goes on, there will be organic growing tutorials. So that's what Debbie's Back Porch is about. Tonight I'm going to take you through the process of making bone broth. We'll start with beef bone broth. And so what is bone broth? You know, nobody agrees. Stock is from bones and broth is from meat. And what is bone broth? It's sort of a new concept, and it seems to be, and for me at least, the process of a long and slow cooking of the bones, which is a little different than making stock, because bone broth can be simmered for 36, 48 hours or more. The purpose of it is to get the richness and the nutrition, the nutrients out of the bones. So whatever people think it is, I'm going to continue to call it bone broth. And apparently it's all the rage, but some of us have been having it for a long, long time. So tonight we're going to do beef bone broth, and then on another night we'll can it. And I'll show you the process of safely canning broth. And let's get to it. Here you have it. This is 12 pounds of beef bones. And we're getting ready for about 36 hours of cooking. I'm going to add some vegetables, and I'm going to let it roast at 350 for an hour or so that we start getting a browning effect. This will take us into, this is Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, and so this is going to take us into Sunday. And the bones that I have here are really not the kind of bones that you can take out and break with a hammer. We'll try to crunch them up after they've cooked for a while, but we may not be able to. The other thing I'll point out is these bones seem to have a good bit of fat on them, which means we're going to end up straining a good bit of that away. We'll try to strain almost all the fat off of it. So I don't know at this point how many quarts of broth we'll get, but we'll get a good many, and I'll take you through the process as we go. Okay, I have just added what I had in my freezer. I had 2 bags of scrapped vegetables. This is celery that got a little too limp. This is leek tops. This is onions. There's a couple of carrots that were too small to fool with. Nothing particular, whatever I have. I don't put potato peels in my bone broth. I don't like the earthy flavor. Potato peels to me are just not something that I want to be eating unless they were cooked and around my potato. A lot of onion. I always add onion and leeks as much as I can. I also don't add any tomato products to my broth. I don't like the color and the flavor that it imparts, and because I'm canning this, I don't add any herbs. I don't want any particular herb flavor in my broth because I'm going to use this later and create meals from this. This will be an ingredient in my cooking. And also, if you're going to can something, herb flavors can turn bitter. during the canning process. So if you were going to freeze it and you want to add herbs, go ahead. But if you're going to can it, be careful what you add to the broth. Not because it would make it unsafe. You're going to strain this. This is just going to be clear broth, or almost clear broth, when you're done. But because canning can change the flavors. So in my experience, and best suited to my cooking, is to keep it plain, beef and vegetables. I'm going to add a little vinegar. First, I'm going to roast it all, and I'm going to put the cover on and roast it for a couple hours at 350, and then I'll come back to you. Okay, folks are always asking how much vinegar, and I never measure it. This is about a quarter cup, a little bit less than a quarter cup, and I'm just going to put it down in there, and we'll be back. Well, here we go. This has been roasting for a couple hours, so now I'm going to add water. I'm going to drip water everywhere. Okay, that's 2 gallons of water. And it was 2 gallons of hot water. I'm going to turn the temperature down now to about 225, between 225 and 250. And I put hot water in because one of the things in dealing with broth that you want to be careful about is the same as food safety with any other item. You don't want your food to stay a long period of time between the temperatures of 40 and 140. That's the danger zone, and actually probably 160 is a safer temperature. So if you add cold water, you're bringing the temperature down. So I went ahead and added hot water, and I'll show you later when we take this broth up and put it in the refrigerator to chill. I'll put it in separate containers, not one large container, because it takes your refrigerator a little while to bring it down to temp. So I actually use half-gallon wide-mouth jars, and that way I have a long cylindrical shape, and it'll take several of them, and that will help the broth to cool more quickly and not stay in the danger zone longer. So we're at about 225, and we're going to cover it up and come back to it in several hours. This will take a little while. Well, we're at about the 18-hour mark, and I thought it would be a good time to check in. I want you to observe at this point the very, very slow bubble that you see. This is at, it's between 225 and 250. That's about as accurate as you can be on this roaster. And you see the dark color that we have and the very slow bubble. Most directions I have read basically say if you boil it too fast, you lose more nutrition. You don't get quite as good a gel, and the broth stays cloudier. Now, I'm not very concerned about trying to get a clear broth, bone broth. By the time we get done with it, it's going to have lots of little bits of bone and marrow and stuff in it that are pretty important that I like to keep. But I don't want to intentionally make it cloudier than it would be normally. So a long, slow cook is the way I go. Now, there are 100 different methods of doing this. I'm just showing you my method. But I think what we're going to have here is a good, rich bone broth that I use for dozens of different dishes, and it will taste so good. So I just wanted you to observe that slow bubble that we get at a simmer temperature. We'll be back in several more hours. Well, it's been about 36 hours, and we're going to take our next step. I know you probably won't be able to read this thermometer, but we've talked about maintaining a safe temperature in food, and that you should really never allow food to sit between the temperatures of 40 and 140 for longer than 2 hours. So how does that translate to our process for broth? I have this is a Nesco roaster. I have it set right between 225 and 250. And several times during this process, I've stuck a meat thermometer down in here just because I want to make sure that we're maintaining a safe temperature, because this is a lot of liquid, and when you have a lot of liquid or a lot of mass, then the temperature is slow to raise and lower. So if you see, this has been maintaining about 180 degrees the whole time it's been cooking. And I do that because, you know, thermostats can be off. So while you're making your bone broth, it's a good idea to check the temperature, and if it's not maintaining a safe temperature, then turn your heat up. So the next step is messy, and I don't know any way to go about it except just go ahead and get in the mess. The bones that I'm using are mostly knuckle bones. I know we always talk about breaking the bones, and we'll try, but we may not be able to. Knuckle bones are really hard to break. If you have a shank bone, a leg bone, you probably can. But we'll see about breaking these. But I'm going to pull out some of the bones, and I've set up something here to sort of minimize the mess. I'm going to pull off any meat that I can. And while we bought these from a processor, so these were from grass-fed beef, locally grown and processed. And these are huge bones. And they had some meat on them. They had a lot of fat on them, so we're going to end up skimming a lot. You can see here's a lot of fat. I'm not just throwing these away because we're going to do a second cook. I know a lot of folks ask about, oh, well, what can I do with all that good meat that's down in there? Can I can it? Can we eat it? Well, we're going to cook this again. In my opinion, there won't be anything worth eating left unless you're a chicken. The chickens will be very happy because all of this excess fat and the bones and little tiny chunks of bones they'll get, you know, that's good for chickens. Fred said this morning, I sure be glad when you're done with that broth. This smell is driving me crazy. I want you to see that this is marrow that has not all come out yet. That's one reason we cook them a second time. Several bones with a good bit of marrow left. Okay, that's enough of this for now. I'm going to set this to the side. Then we'll take the next step. Okay, we have here a half-gallon wide-mouth jar. This is a mesh bag that I use, a jelly bag. The jar has been tempered, by the way. It's been sitting in hot water because I'm getting ready to put hot broth in it and I don't want it to break. Now the reason that I'm using a half-gallon jar is another food safety issue, and you don't have to use a half-gallon jar. By the way, this is wide mouth so that I'll be able to skim the fat. We're going to put this in the fridge to chill. It'll probably chill overnight. When you put a large volume of something hot in your refrigerator, it pulls the temperature of your fridge up and takes it a long while to chill. So if I just put all this broth in one great big container and set it in the fridge, it could take it 24 hours or so to chill down enough for the fat to set up, perhaps longer. And if you've been doing that and wondering why the fat doesn't set up solid, it's probably because your refrigerator is not maintaining a cold enough temperature with all the hot broth, the hot liquid that you've put in there. So what I do is sort of break up the process and break up the batches. And I keep wide mouth jars. Another thing you can use is a pitcher. Something long and skinny. Or if you have a shallow bowl so that the broth is not deep, then you could use that. But you don't want to put several gallons of hot liquid in your refrigerator all at one time and expect your refrigerator to just magically pull it down to a safe temperature. It takes a while, and if I were to put 4 or 5 gallons in at one time, and I'm making several gallons because I have turkey broth going too. It's possible that your broth would be held at too warm a temperature for too long of time to be safe. So I break it up. Okay, that's about full. And this is the first batch, so we got mostly fat. And I could go ahead and strain some of the fat off, but I'm not going to. I'm going to let it separate naturally and get almost hard, and then pull it out. Now I'll fill up 3 of these, and what's left I'll leave in the pot in the roaster, and I'm going to put them in the refrigerator a little bit at a time and let them cool down. I already have 2 of these full of turkey broth in the refrigerator, but they've been in there several hours and they're already starting to congeal. So I'm going to put this one in the refrigerator and then I'll be back. Oh yes, one more thing that I do need to mention that's important. I put these in the refrigerator without a lid. And the reason is if I put a lid on it right now, it'll pull a vacuum. And I don't want it to pull a vacuum. I don't want low acid broth pulling a vacuum and sitting for probably a couple hours before it's down to a safe temperature. So I put it in with no lid. Well, I promised you a mess, and we have one. This is the 3rd half gallon of broth going in the fridge. Be back in a second. Okay, well, since we already have such a mess, let's try to break up some of these bones. With turkey broth or chicken broth, breaking the bones is just no trouble. They just crumble in your hands. But these are knuckle bones, and I have an idea they might not break so easily. They're going to go back in the pot in any case, broken or not, because if you'll see on a knuckle bone, the way these are cut, you have a big exposed area, and this is the marrow down in here, and it'll come out along with much of the nutrients and calcium in the bones. If you can break them, you get a little bit more. If you have shank bones or leg bones, you do want to try to break them, but don't hurt yourself. It's not worth breaking something. Let's see if I can do this without breaking something. So I've got them in a net bag, and then I've got them in a towel. And then I've got them in a box to protect my table. So let's see what we got here. Yes. I hope you can see that. They broke up into much smaller pieces. And we're going to put that right back into our broth. And I'll break up probably at least half of these bones, the ones that look like they've still got marrow and goody in them. And then I'll be back. Well, I've put the bones, some of them broken, some of them not, back in the roaster and added back a gallon of hot water. I'm going to cover these at about 225, and we're going to let them cook another 10-12 hours. Now, if you don't want to do this second cook, you don't have to. The broth that comes from this is a little weaker, but when mixed together with the first, you get a good broth that generally gels. So this second cook is entirely up to you. I just have been pleased with the results I get. Well, I want to let you see this. In the front are the 3 half-gallon jars of beef broth. In the back are the 2 half-gallon jars of turkey broth. The turkey broth was in the refrigerator about 2 hours. Here we are the next day. And this is chilled. And I'm going to take this fat off. Now, when I left you, I was filling up the roaster the second time. And when I have finished this, I'll take that out, drain it. And please excuse my arm. I had a set to with a chicken this morning. And she got me good. So, I'm taking out the fat. And it's just something I do is I cut it in quarters when I do it in these jars so that I can take it out more easily. I don't throw this away. I refrigerate it and I use it for making brown gravy, to start a braise. You can use it for anything you would fry with. I refrigerate it in a jar. I'll put it in a clean quart mason jar or a pint according to how much I have, and use it like you would use beef drippings anytime you have beef drippings. Try to get it all. You may not be able to get every single bit. And if you were freezing this, you wouldn't have to worry about it. But I'm working to get it all because I'm going to can this. I'm using this paper towel to get the little bits of fat that are on the inside of the jar. So if you can see, there's a tiny little bit of fat left here. Not very much at all. So there's discussion of if it gels, is there something wrong with it? If it doesn't gel, is there something wrong with it? Sometimes it gels, sometimes it doesn't. Usually, for me, beef broth does. Or chicken broth that's made, chicken bone broth that's made from raw chicken. Sometimes turkey broth that's made from an already roasted bird doesn't get that lovely gel. But it still has nutrition and it still tastes good. So this broth is now ready to heat, bring back to a boil and can, which I'm going to do with this, or put it in freezer bags and freeze it, freezer containers, whatever you like. Some people put it in ice cube trays so that they have little ice cubes of bone broth to add. So there you have it. Beef bone broth. If you can see that nice gel. And this is at room temperature. So I hope you enjoy this. I hope you make it. It's good. It's good for you. And it's frugal because you're making this from bones that would have otherwise been thrown away. So thank you for joining us for this long process on Debbie's Back Porch.